along route number 1 from Hanoi to the south. They were all repeatedly attacked and bombarded by the Americans, even including the smallest ones through the villages, where all of the towns around the rivers were devastated as well. This bridge at Ham Rong has become a special symbol of defense against their attack and of the capacity of this people to keep supplies rolling. It was attacked repeatedly from the 3rd of April 1965, but was never completely closed. From a 3-lane bridge, it's now a 1-lane bridge. It's still being repaired, but the people here are proud that they had the capacity and the guts to keep the supplies rolling to what they believe to be a just war of defense of their country.
The bombing of North Vietnam began on August the 4th, 1964, after an American warship was allegedly attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin. It went on for a long 4 years and 3 months. In that period, houses, hospitals, schools and roads were daily blasted in a country that had too little of any of these necessities. At Sam Son, the only open-air cinema was destroyed and workers' rest homes totally demolished. But the people were defiant and life went on. Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese forces have been remarkably successful with light or primitive ack-ack weapons, but they also now have the ferociously lethal Russian SAM missile, which itself constitutes a potent deterrent to American bombing.
This is the garden of the former American consulate in Hanoi, and this is an example of the most sophisticated weaponry in the world. The Americans call it the tropical tree, and they drop it into the jungles of South Vietnam, and it opens up with 4 antennae that then report back to base any movements of troop columns or equipment through the wilderness. This ingenious piece of work, however, has a weakness. The peasants and the Liberation Army search the forests and they carefully prune off the antenna. Or as the Vietnamese say here, it's a great help to have the people as your weapons.
These children were born before the bombing stopped, yet they still have to rehearse as though it's going to start again. They treat their air raid drill as fun, as a release. It is only the teachers' faces which tense with the memories of how it was. For this small Southeast Asian country was faced with a 91% illiteracy in 1945 and has now virtually wiped it out. With a prodigious effort, it has established schools in every village. They don't have enough writing paper, the exercise books are bound in newsprint, but they are earnest. They have model pupils and they are learning.
3 điểm, điểm nhất, điểm thứ hai và cái cọc của em cầm ở ngoài kia là đều nằm ở trên mặt đường.
Alongside of the schools grow the unprecedented village hospitals aimed at stamping out the historic peasant afflictions. Death in childbirth, fever, malaria, the dreaded trachoma eye disease. Medical orderlies now cope and cure for the first time in this countryside.
Chịu đau mắt lâu chưa? Đau mới. Bây giờ thức cho chị.
But they have to do it without penicillin, sulfur drugs, the antibiotics. They haven't got enough, so they fall back on the traditional remedies, the roots, the barks, the inherited memories. The mood of a country is single-mindedly at war for a purpose permeates the children too. There is a deadly underlying seriousness even in the routine daily exercising of the kindergarten. This countryside has never felt the civilizing caress of farm machinery. It is being shaped and transformed by the water buffalo and the frail human hand. For North Vietnam has no measurable national income. After the country was divided in 1954, it was predicted that the North would collapse. But it didn't because of sheer human effort, even though the water that was its life had to be bailed manually into the rice paddy fields. But the fields themselves are now alive with a new menace. They have been showered in their thousands with light, elegantly designed plastic mines. The legacies of injury will endure for generations.
We've seen the pineapple bomb, which sends out high-velocity pellets, the round bomb, which comes 500 to every canister, the bouncing fragmentation bomb aimed at blowing your head off, and perhaps most diabolical of them all, there are now strewn through the forests, the farms, and the paddy fields of North and South Vietnam these mines, these spider bombs, which blow off peasants' feet as well as soldiers, and perhaps most obscene of them all, the light plastic mine and the little fabric envelope which inevitably attract inquisitive tiny fingers.
Mr. Hoang Tung is a member of the Central Committee of the Vietnamese Workers' Party and editor of its principal newspaper. We talked for 3 hours, and he was clearly skeptical of American good intentions. Everything he said must mean that President Nixon's latest suggestions will be dismissed by him and his party as gimmickry. The people of this country, he said, in a long history, have defeated the Mongol hordes, the feudal Chinese, the colonial French, the fascist Japanese, and now believe we can exhaust the Americans. His analysis included American inflation, their cutback in space, and concluded the Americans could not survive a war of attrition, but that the Vietnamese also did not want stalemate. So any suggestion which prolongs the stay of foreign troops, any idea which preserves power in Saigon, for those politicians they consider to be traitors to the cause of national independence will simply not be considered.
Nhưng làm một tên đế quốc đầu sỏ, tên xe đầm quốc tế, nó dựa vào cái sức mạnh to lớn của nó và nó nuôi những tham vọng rất tàn bạo là chinh phục các nước làm thuộc địa.
They know their weakness. The French left them a tiny working class of barely 100,000. They have expanded this to 1 million, but it's still not enough. The bombing was clearly a decisive disruption. this factory of Chinese-manufactured spinning machines had to be completely dispersed and then brought back to Hanoi at enormous cost, but, they say, without any loss of production. Their results can only be due to high morale. The cultural groups linked with factories breathe and sing the struggle. The music, the dances, the laments all mirror the agony of the Southerners and the firm desire of those in the North to end it. The physical growth and political and military successes of the NLF has led to the creation of a provisional revolutionary government which physically controls and administers huge areas of South Vietnam, including districts of Saigon itself. This provisional revolutionary government is not just the Vietnamese Workers' Party. It says it's patriotic and broadly based. I asked its representatives in Hanoi about the shape of a possible political solution. They made these basic points. They want a definite withdrawal date for all United States troops, and given that, they would be happy to see them leave peacefully. There must be a provisional coalition government in which they play a part. And then they would respect foreign property in South Vietnam, providing the countries concerned respected their independence. But they are unwilling, absolutely, to have Key To and Key Em, the leaders of the present Saigon government, in any coalition. They added, the Provisional Revolutionary Government is positively prepared for a policy of national reconciliation, and we promise no reprisals and no recrimination. The new government will welcome trade and aid from any quarter, providing it's based on mutual respect. And during the transitional period in South Vietnam, we will be both neutral and independent. But all of this depends upon an initial agreement for a firm date for the withdrawal of all American troops and their allies from Vietnam, and they are asking for this to be done by June the 30th, 1971. North Vietnam, a united nation, is willing to fight for the salvation of the whole country for as long as is necessary. We want peace, they said, but we want our freedom as well.